So we're going to start making our brownies. So I need to get a few things over here for that. Now, normally I make these brownies in like an 8x8 pan and I line it with parchment paper. So again, this one we're making kind of decadent. We are going to be using some oil. And it is a liquid oil we're going to be using. So I'm just going to use some olive oil. Because olive oil is actually kind of yummy in baked goods sometimes. If you don't use oil, I am not telling you to use oil. You could use mashed avocado. We could use pumpkin. If you use pumpkin, applesauce, something like that, you're going to have cakey brownies instead of these chewier, gooier brownies. And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. That's all I have to say. And I need to get 1/2 cup of warm water, or not warm water. I always say that because we're making our eggs, our vegan eggs. I got some more stuff to get around here too. We've got cocoa and flaxseed and Teff Flour. Can you make this if you don't have Teff Flour? Yes, you can. You could make this with whole wheat pastry flour even. So don't worry about that. All right, we want 1/4 cup of flaxseed. And I'm not terribly worried about measuring everything to like absolute perfection. I think we can make it up. If it's a little loose, we'll add a little flour. If it's a little tight, we can add some more water or something like that too. Though this is quite a thick batter as is. So I'm going to go ahead and mix in this water. And we're going to let this sit to the side. And in case you're new to using something like this, I wanted you to see how thin it starts out. Because you're like, that doesn't look like an egg, you crazy lady. But what happens is the flax absorbs some of that and gets thicker. Okay? So we're going to set this aside for a second. And we're going to go ahead and I think we're going to do the flours in this one. We're going to put some more sugar. You can use 1/2 cup of brown or coconut sugar and 1/2 cup of white sugar. And again, I'm using an organic cane sugar. So we've got 1/2 cup of vegan regular sugar. We're going to do 1/2 cup of vegan brown sugar. You could use coconut sugar for half or all of that. And I'm dropping that over in the dishwasher. Okay. And then we're going to put in 1/4 cup of avocado oil or other mild flavor oil. I'm swapping it up because I'm using olive oil because that's what I have. But I used to bake with it quite a bit, actually. And there are some particular olive oils that taste buttery, which could be a bonus. But you could use, again, mashed avocado would be the best substitution. You could still put pumpkin, you could put applesauce, you could probably use pureed bean. It's just going to make a cakeier brownie. Okay. All right. Get that kind of mixed up. We're going to put in a little bit of vanilla And I have a new bottle of vanilla to open, which is always exciting. I am using Rodell, but any vanilla works great. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And you could do something that Cheryl hates. You could also put orange extract, almond extract. You could use a teaspoon of rum. You could use, what else can we do? A teaspoon of rum, bourbon, Grand Marnier, amaretto, vegan Baileys. So you could use anything in here that you wanted. Vanilla is going to just give you that regular brownie flavor. There is some pumpkin spice extract, actually by Rodell. So see how this is fairly wet. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get our flour and cocoa in here. So we want to measure flours kind of loose. So that's why I'm shaking it up a little bit. It's settled quite a bit. And I have another jar if this isn't quite enough, but I think it's going to be pretty darn close. See if I can get the last bits out of the bottom. Yeah, I think that's really about 1 cup. Okay, so we've got 1 cup of Teff. Now we're going to do a 1/2 cup of just regular cocoa powder. So even though we use some olive oil, because we're not using chocolate chips, we're kind of still, in my opinion, coming out a little bit ahead. And some brownies actually have a much worse kind of nutritional profile than this. And let's look at this guy. See how this is thickening up now, and it looks a little more like eggs when we get it all mixed up together. And we'll let it sit for just a minute or two more. I am probably going to need my big short wooden spoon when the time comes to get everything together, because this is a very thick batter. But I'm mixing the flour, and actually I did not put any salt. So if you're salt-free, you could leave the salt out completely, but usually I put the 1/2 teaspoon of salt in the wet mixture. And I am going to use these mini ones. You could easily cook these all at once with the parchment. The parchment's going to help you get them out and cut them into small wedges. I thought we'd try and do them this way and see how that works out. That way you'll know. Okay, so let's mix. Let me move this a little bit too. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put this in. I'm big on scraping everything out. So if you don't have a really good spatula, now's the time to think of getting one. Plus you can get a spooky one or a fall one, which may not change your mind, but it would change mine. Okay. And if you use coconut sugar or something else, you're not going to get the same amount of moisture. And that's why I'm saying you will probably have to add a little bit. And if I measured too densely, I may have to add a little bit anyhow. But these brownies are quite thick. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. And it's funny, I haven't used the spray oil in a while. I usually use it for things like this. And actually, let's go this way. Okay. You want to get each one in there, but you don't have to like kill it either. a long time ago, I was doing Boston Veg Fest, and we were making mini, I think it's pumpkin brownies from the vegan slow cooker. And I was doing it with a woman from the publisher was there helping me. And I've never seen someone spray in each one. It made me a little neurotic. That I thought they were going to fall apart, but they soaked it right up, which, you know, is what it is. Okay. So now we've got these guys ready for me to put things in. Also, I'm going to be cooking them in this Breville. This is a Breville toaster oven air, so I can just cook them in there. I'm going to turn it to bake about 350. And it's going to let me know when it's preheated. And then we're going to actually, usually we cook these for about 30 minutes. These will probably be more like, thinking 12 to 15, could be 10. So we'll check them a little bit too. Okay. All right, so we've got the wet. Actually, set this over here. Let me get this where you guys are actually seeing it well. So I'm going to just put about a quarter in here. Actually, I'm going to put a half. I'm impatient. And you could use a mixer for this if your arms aren't good. I'm interested to see how my wrists are going to do through this. I haven't made these in a while. But it is a thick old brownie thing. Okay. Let's go ahead and do about half of that. Clean my counter good so that I could do that. But I feel like brownies are such a universal thing. There are very few people that don't like them. I don't hate chocolate at all, but I don't love chocolate everything, and I have to eat gluten-free. So everything gluten-free and vegan for dessert, 95 to 98% of it is chocolate. So I'm tired of chocolate, but I love a brownie. So for Cheryl, if this had walnuts and chocolate chips and stuff, she'd be pretty happy. I would not be happy with the chocolate chips. And Cheryl actually says no chocolate chips. She's a purist in a lot of things. So see how this is a pretty thick batter. I'm going to go in here and get my spatula so I can scrape all this out and make sure I'm scraping all the dry ingredients off the bottom. Brown Teff flour almost has a darker caramely. Teff flour in general almost tastes a little darker, a little nutty. And it's almost like, it's not an exact hazelnut flavor, but it really supports the chocolate. So there's like the chocolate and this other flavor, and it feels really good, happy. And we're using these little muffin tins, or we cut it up because we're making these party platters, right? I'm looking. I'm not sure which. Oh, let's see. I think we're going to probably use a tablespoon one. And I think I need to rinse this off. Okay, let me dry it a little bit. So in using this, there's a couple things. So it's going to cook faster, which is nice. It's going to portion it out for you. You can freeze these after they're cooked. So if you want to make enough to go through the whole holiday season, we can, you could do a pan. I just got this actually at TJ Maxx today with this little peppermint dust. And basically, that's just my toaster oven saying it's ready. You could sprinkle peppermints on these little crushed peppermints. You can crush them yourself, but I always knock a hole through the bag and disaster ensues. So I go ahead and get that because that will last me 2 years, because I will put a little bit here and then throw it in the freezer. Okay, we could top it with all kinds of things. We could put peppermint extract in and use the peppermints. Okay, so I'm just gonna, actually I think you can see that from here, right? Yeah, it's about a tablespoon. This is a particularly flat mini muffin. So if you have a taller one, yours are going to come out a little bit different. And it's a 50-50 chance. I have both kinds, but I really like these, and you can kind of see from that they're kind of shallow. And I think we can get a couple more out of here. I don't think we're going to make the whole 24, but I'm okay with that. But let's see how close we can get. You're seeing my obsessiveness come out now. Those of you who know me, it is no surprise. Those of you who don't know me, it will happen again. But see, I got a whole nother brownie out of it. I'll be really happy about that later. Okay. Now, one thing you'll notice when you're tasting this, because of the sugars, it's going to be a little gritty at this point. The sugars are going to kind of meld later on. Okay, so I'm going to stick these in here, and I may end up turning them around a little bit. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to leave it on 9 minutes and 15 seconds, which is what it's doing for the moment. And let's just check on it and see. It may need a little bit more. It may not. So I'm going to come over here. I see that these are still a little looser than I'd like, so I'm going to let them go for, I'm going to say 4 minutes. And then we'll let them cool. They could still be a little hard to get out of in there, so it's going to be exciting. The yummy smell of brownies, yeah. So I'm wanting these guys to still be just ever so slightly soft, right? And they'll still cook some while they're in here, so we're going to let them kind of cool off. And hopefully they're going to come out of here. I encourage you, and I encourage me, but I don't always do it, to use enough oil. There's in between, too much and not enough. And I got the cutest cutting board for our brownies. And I'm really hoping these come out fairly easy, but they perhaps may not. This is why I always for sure do spray these with oil. It's because they can be a monster. Let's see if this one will be good enough. It's going to smush it a lot. I'd like to smush it less, please. Okay. So these are super fudgy. So let you see this. Super fudgy. So you can see some of the glistening. They're not going to be this fudgy if you don't use oil. It is perfectly okay to, let's start up here. But that's also why they're easy to move around. There we go. And then I can just kind of repair them. We made Cheryl's favorite brownies, Dawn's favorite brownies, pretty much everybody's favorite brownies. I've even had fancy food people make these brownies. and say they're really good. They were kind of a mistake. I was working for the Teff company, so I was like, oh, let me make some Teff brownies. I will start the first recipe to see how it's going to mess up. This is the first recipe. So it's kind of the magic Teff brownies.